We begin with something simple, something soft. The feeling that the coastline has been waiting for us. Not waiting in any dramatic way, but in the quiet manner a familiar room remembers its last visitor. By the angle of light on a wall, by the faint warmth left in a chair, by a silence shaped exactly to your outline. And that is our hook, the small wonder that brings us here tonight. The sense that the shore itself remembers, not us specifically, but our kind, our footsteps, our questions, our breath settling into the rhythm of waves. There is a gentle curiosity at the heart of this evening, to stand with our feet at the water and listen. So let us begin with a single image to hold us steady, like a lantern cupped in both hands. A low, humble house of woven reeds and clay. A strip of faded cloth swaying at its doorway. A ribbon of smoke rising thin as thread. This is the image we'll return to as the story unfolds. A home small enough to fit inside a memory, yet strong enough to anchor a world. Close to shore, the gulls call with the clarity of distant chimes. Each cry falls at just the right interval, spaced with a kind of thoughtful patience. Between them, we place our breaths. And as the wave draws near, out as it slips from the sand, already the body begins to unspool. This is not a story of battles or triumphs. No crowns, no conquests, no sharp-edged mysteries. Tonight we reconstruct gently, with hands open. Treating the past as a companion rather than a puzzle. We sit with the salt on the air and an archive under our feet. The Black Sea keeps memory differently, not on paper or stone, but in silt and pollen, layering itself slowly into soft, unbroken time. Imagine those layers. The skin of a field folded upon itself. Season after season, quiet as breath. A seed speaks of climate. A hearth speaks of family. These are the small witnesses we will consult. Their testimony is soft, but it is steady. In the warm light before nightfall, this shoreline once held a narrow lane of homes. We follow one village as though walking down a corridor. The potter waking with dawn, hands damp with clay. The woman stooping to gather salt wort by the tidal plain. The child whose laughter, blurred now by centuries, still lingers like a distant echo inside the wind. We do not need their names. Their gestures, their small habits, are enough. The archive beneath us is gentle in its vocabulary. Pollen counted in a quiet room. The outline of a post hole. The curve of a cooking vessel. Archaeologists give these traces technical names, but tonight we take them as domestic clues. A hearth like a familiar bowl. A storage pit like a chest closed at dusk. From these clues grows a calm imagining. Fields of barley ripening slowly. Animals kept near the reeds. A calendar marked by the return of birds. There is a soft economy to these lives. An economy of sharing, mending, repurposing, of saying names aloud so they would not be lost to the wind. Hands repair a pot with a strip of leather. Fish hang drying from a cord tied between posts. Small details now, perhaps, but they anchor history in the warm, domestic quiet where it can be held without effort. As we step forward, the sound shifts almost imperceptibly. The scrub underfoot gives way to muddier grass. The tide has begun learning new rooms to enter. But we need not rush to explain that learning. Shorelines change with patience. A slow, hydrological reweaving rather than a single dramatic sweep. Let the larger questions rest for now. This first hour is for sensation, not for analysis. Notice what your body does when we say the word shore. Perhaps the breath settles. Perhaps the shoulders loosen. Bring gentle attention to the soles of your feet, to the imagined cool sand yielding beneath them. Let your weight shift softly, as though greeted by the earth. My task is to steady that presence, matching our pace to the low, repeating rhythms of the coastline. We will move through images deliberately. A pot cooling by the hearth, a furrow still glistening from earlier rain, a child's hand closing around a smooth stone. Each image will be given room, like a quiet bedroom left open to breathe. We are not filling the past with facts, only furnishing it with texture. the kind texture memory finds restful. Before we go deeper into the village, a final invitation: settle your shoulders. Lengthen the breath by a count of 2. Let the mind soften at the edges. We remember, we listen, we watch. And in that order, the shoreline becomes a place we can visit at ease. Now, whenever you feel ready, we will step toward the reed-draped doorway. We let the village come to us in the soft company of the sea. Voices low, curiosity modest. Like lanterns dimmed at dusk, so their small, steady light can travel farther across the sleeping water. We will walk now into the measured day of the village. Morning arrives as a small ritual, light pressing like a palm across reed roofs. The first gull, less a summons than acknowledgement. Hear the harbor before you see it. Boats drawn up like tired animals on the shallows, ropes coiling with the soft decision of habit, a fisherman lifting a net with a movement learned over many seasons. From the harbor there runs an avenue of oaks, whose leaves whisper the village calendar. We imagine a child skipping a pebble along the mud flats, a woman humming while she tends a narrow garden, the potter setting a fresh lump of clay upon the wheel. These are the set pieces of a day: the harbor, the oak avenue, the hearth, the tidal plain. Each is a small stage for ordinary acts that, together, hold a world. At the harbor, sound is the lifeblood, the rope's soft slap, the hollow click of oars eased into salt, a gull folding its wings like a slow punctuation. In feeling we learn how the body shaped the village. We feel the cool clay beneath our toes as we stand near the potter's shed. The texture instructs us more than a map ever could. A scholar might pause here to note that coastal economies are hybrid, balanced between sea and field. It is a curious fact such balances produce a certain domestic steadiness. But the scholar's pause is not a lecture but a soft aside. The detail illuminates without insisting. Walk with us down the oak avenue. The trees keep a measured shade, and the path is patterned with the small detritus of life: a broken spindle, a child's sandal, a string of drying seaweed. Here, the air smells of sun-warmed wood and the faint iron of distant tide. Here, voices are low, often conversational, rarely hurried. We pass a hearth manager tending embers, and the sound is immediate: wood rasping against stone, the click of a pot lid, a low murmur of names. The hearth is the village's inner clock. Its heat measures hours by the shiftingness of ash and the slow cooling of a ceramic bowl. We watch, and we learn the household rhythms in a way that is almost tactile. The bowl's rim cools, the next spoon is set down, the child in the doorway yawns and becomes a measure of the day. On the tidal plain, the village breathes differently. Saltwood is gathered in loose bundles, wading boots make soft, yielding prints, and birds mark time with long, looping migrations. We stand in the shallows and let the water form a slow metronome against our calves, matching again the tide and our breathing. Feel the body's ascent as the breath lengthens. Who tended these marshes? Who sang to the seed pits when they were covered for the winter? Such small questions expand into a patient wonder that is companionable. We keep these questions as invitations. They act like handrails for the mind, allowing us to follow without strain. Throughout the day, there is a chorus of small labors: mending nets by lamplight, braiding ropes with deliberate fingers, carrying water in a slow, habitual arc. The sounds are domestic and musical in their repetition. One hand passes a knot, the other smooths it. A spindle spins, a reed is plucked and laid aside. We take note of patterns rather than plotting causality. The repetition itself is a comfort. And there is a sustained wonderline that threads these images: how ordinary hands can, without spectacle, create continuity across generations. Is it not astonishing that the same movement of thumb and cord can appear in the soil record centuries later? We imagine the archaeologist's small delight, a private astonishment at a familiar groove. There are scholar asides, gentle and unhurried. early farming community, is a label that may suggest complexity, but for those who lived it, complexity looked like many small decisions made day after day. A note on seasonality: planting follows rain, harvest follows sun, and the village's calendar is more a living thing than a table of dates. We might imagine a song sung at sowing, a word spoken at threshing. These cultural motions are the villagers' real calendar, and they leave faint traces in seed shells, in storage pit layers, in the way fences are rebuilt each spring. We let these traces be our guides, and we experience them as textures rather than proofs. As the afternoon yields to evening, strokes become softer. The potter closes his shed with a final sweep. The child wraps a shawl around sleeping shoulders, and the harbor's boats are steadied like loose pages in a book. Our attention narrows in the best way, from the oak avenue to a single hand, from the tidal plane to the imprint of a foot. We end this day with a small, domestic image, a bowl cooling on a windowsill, the steam fading into the dusk, and that image will be our lantern as we move forward into deeper narratives. Allow your shoulders to sink, and notice the breath widening now into slower, fuller arcs. We carry this day's textures with us, soft and lit, like a pocketed lantern. We proceed together, unhurried and curious. We follow a line of worn stones that once marked a lane. Here, where the sea has softened edges into suggestion, clusters of post holes and low foundations lie like a pattern under glass. Listen, the village is a chorus of small things, not a single sound. A child's slow laugh folding into the scrape of a cart, the hollow knock of a mallet on a plank, the soft settling of clay in a potter's hand. We approach one exemplar village with the care one uses for an old neighbor, not to interrogate, but to greet. Feel the cool clay beneath our toes as we stand at its boundary. The ground gives a little, then steadies under our weight. This village has no dramatic name in our telling. We call it, for the moment, the place between tides, and the name will serve as a lantern to steer by. Under shallow water, the shapes are less precise, but intimate. A hearth outline like a faded face, pottery shards like teeth left by a thoughtful sea. Sediment keeps records here. Small, patient entries, pollen from barley, the imprint of a reed mat, the dark stain where a grain pit once held its store. Archaeologists speak in quiet rooms of cores and counts. Those tallies are not cold numbers to us, but soft clues that invite a reconstruction performed with gentleness. Consider how pollen can name a season. Barley pollen suggests a field once green. A smear of charcoal suggests a hearth used and loved. We move slowly, letting such traces speak in their own quiet dialect. There are set pieces visible even through silt. The shoreline garden with a ring of stones, the narrow packing shed near a channel, a post that marks where an animal was tethered. We imagine footsteps threading between these markers, each step a small argument for continuity, a daily motion repeated until it becomes custom. Who set the pot by the doorway? Who tied the knot that kept a net from slipping? We do not always know, and the uncertainty is a kind mercy. Short lines of attention like this quiet the mind. We touch the clay, we breathe the dust. Mud sometimes preserves the most intimate things. A child's toy, shaped from a carved peg and smoothed by fingers. A spindle whorl with a thumb mark. A repaired bowl with a hairline seam. These objects act as confidants across centuries. One might reach to them and feel an echo of a hand that mended a bowl. It is in the inner chamber of a communal structure, a raised platform later divers see as the sunken ziggurat's gentle contour, that we find a single offering, a carved peg shaped like a bird. We enter that chamber with reverence, water muffling our footsteps and elongating the space into a slow cathedral of light. In the hush, we discover the bird peg, tucked in a shallow niche, its edges worn smooth by touch. We feel its tiny weight in the palm of the imagination and understand that smallness can hold vast tenderness. Here the ziggurat motif is quiet, an architectural cradling of memory rather than a boast. The inner chamber is where domestic life and symbolic architecture meet. A corner for offerings, a shelf for keeps, a place that asks only to be remembered kindly. We listen to the muffled tick of silt settling and the slow breath of water moving through a passage, and in that listening the object's presence becomes a payoff, not for plot, but for feeling. We place our imaginations beside the peg and trace the thumb mark lines as if following the grooves of a well-known road. We touch the clay, we breathe the dust. In quiet labs, a technician leans close to a slide and counts minute striations. The microscope's lamp is a modest sun. These careful acts translate into the maps we use to stroll this shoreline in imagination, turning fragments into gentle narratives we can follow. Explanations for how the village came to rest beneath the sea are soft but varied. One theory is patient return. The sea rose and reclaimed low-lying fields over generations, families moving hearths higher in patient increments. Another speaks of an inlet opening, a local rearrangement that nudged channels and made the old lane unwalkable. Boats replaced carts and nets replaced scythes. A third is human slow undoing, choices made in the face of new climates or shifting rivers. Each theory is a lens, none a verdict. We say them like leaves, letting them settle where they will. Between these possibilities lie intimate moments of disappearance. A bowl left cooling by the door, a child's blanket folded and set, seeds tied into cloth for a future season. We imagine an evening where plans alter just enough that a household moves a cartload up the slope, and another where a family decides to stay and adapt. History is the sum of such increments. Rich, small scenes soften loss into passage. A woman rolling up a reed mat, a man untying a net to try a different inlet. Such gestures are quiet and dignified. We touch a pot rim and allow the mind to fill in who might have held it last. The ambiguity hook is subtle. We are invited to wonder without being made to choose. Is the village emptied by water or by choice? Is the ziggurat a communal altar or simply a raised granary? We hold both images as possible and let uncertainty be a comfortable space rather than vacancy. A rhetorical pause allows the breath to lengthen. Listen to your chest expand, then let it soften. We walk the ruined lane again, not to tally losses but to meet lives. A child playing, a potter shaping, a neighbor lending hands to mend a roof. We keep our questions soft and our attention warmer than a lamp. Finally, consolations. Objects and patterns persist. Seed varieties can survive in sheltered pockets. Memories live in stories told on new shores, and the sea keeps these villages in a careful hush. We name nothing to own it. We let the memory remain a companion. Touch your palm to the imagined carved peg and feel, briefly, the connection that reaches across centuries, a hand touching, another hand remembering. We touch the clay, we breathe the dust, and in those repeated acts the village remains nearby, folded into our listening, kept gentle and near. We move now from imagined lanes to the precise instruments of modern recognition, not to unmake the quiet, but to meet it with careful touch. There is a small sequence of recognitions that most recoveries follow. A net snagged upon an unseen stone, a photograph taken from a low-flying craft, a sonar blip that insists on further listening, a diver's gloved hand reaching where eyes cannot, a lab table where mud is teased into meaning, and finally the gentle footfalls of public walks along a shore that has learned to keep its stories. Hear those noises as a kind of soft machinery. The nets rasp like a string played slowly, the cameras shudder a gentle punctuation, the sonars pulse like a distant metronome, and the diver's breath a respectful whisper in the water. These are not loud sounds. They are attentive sounds, the ones curiosity makes when it stoops. We begin at a modest harbor where a net catches. A fisherman leans, and his hand tells him something is different, tension in the weave, an unexpected haul of old timber, a shard of pottery among weeds. There is tactile astonishment in that tug, the feeling of grain against skin, of durable clay softened by long water. A camera follows from above, its lens patient, gathering the coastal plan in soft squares. The first image may be ordinary, foam and rock, until someone notices a line beneath the shoal, a geometry incongruent with natural stone. We see the image and hold our breath with the finder. The photo is a private nudge to listen closer. A sonar blip appears like a heartbeat on a dim screen. Machines bring their own acoustics. The low electronic ping, the soft whir of a winch, the hiss of compressed air. The blip is a question posed to the sea. It requires patience more than speed. We imagine technicians leaning close to displays, light reflecting off faces in the dim room, hands tracing coordinates like fingers on a map of a remembered dream. The diver's descent is a slow choreography. The hiss of regulator, the rustle of suit, the small cloud of disturbed silt as fins cut a corridor. Underwater, details reorganize. A post becomes a pillar, a hearth becomes a hollow, a pattern in stone becomes a street. We picture the diver's gloved fingers as instruments of attention, lifting a shard as if lifting a note. That uplift is always modestly celebratory. There is a tender moment when a diver finds a decorative rim, the tiny carving of a bird, and holds it against the light that filters down. The diver's smile in that instant is private, a scholarly joy needing no audience. Back on the lab table, the ocean's handwriting is coaxed into speech, sediment brushed like dust from a page, residues tested, each small essay reframing the blip's image. The lab's sounds are a nocturne, a centrifuge's soft hum, the click of scales, the whisper of a pipette. These sounds are quiet instruments of translation. They turn mud into dates and fragments into contours of life. A technician lifts a tiny sample to light and says, "This pollen is barley, near a hearth." Such moments are domestic. They reweave human into technical, a pleasing reconciliation. Public walks follow discovery. A community gathers, the shore a place for gentle storytelling. An elder pointing to a line in the sand, a child asking why the rocks are different, two neighbors lowering voices as if lowering a lantern. We prefer these walks to spectacle. They honor neighborly memory and fold scientific attention into communal care. Walking together is a civil act of remembering. There is also a patient mapping, feet on the shore and hands on clipboard, as coastal geomorphologists trace the old shoreline with wooden stakes and a soft measured gaze. Their footsteps are the careful punctuation between machine beats. In the dim workroom, charts are pinned like quiet constellations, layers of sediment translated into soft curves, annotated in neat, human handwriting that resists spectacle. Sometimes the most moving acoustics are not from instruments, but from conversation. Two technicians murmuring over an image, their words small and slow, a shared astonishment passed in low tones. Throughout this sequence there is tactile astonishment, the smell of wet wood, the grain of a pot rim against a gloved thumb, the coolness of silt between fingers. These images invite our bodies into the narrative. We feel the cold on our hands, we know the texture of pot, and we share quiet recognition. Modern discovery remains gentle in our telling. Machines and labs are servants to attention, not conquerors. We emphasize human scale. A single shard returned to a shelf, a child's drawing on a sliver of wood, a seed found within a husk, intimacy in science. There is sound unexpectedly musical. The lab's low hum tuned to the ocean's chord, the sonar's ping like a small bell, the diver's regulator matched to the sea's breath. We can arrange these sounds in our mind like an ensemble accompanying discovery. Notice how your breathing may match this rhythm. Allow it to lengthen and soften. We will not rush. Each sound is a small step toward quiet understanding. Often the most affecting discoveries are not headlines, but domestic. The first photo of a roofline beneath glassy water, a spindle whorl entangled in seaweed, a bead with a hairline repair. Such findings bridge scientist and neighbor. The image appears in a public walk and in a family album, both cherished. Each convergent moment folds modern into ancient like a shared blanket. Often these finds make a quiet journey. A shard is bagged and labeled, a bead wrapped in tissue, and later a conservator will cradle them under glass, their smallness magnified by care. That gentle custody feels like a promise that small objects will be kept with patience and returned in story. At times, discovery is a quiet conversation. The sea offers a hint. The community answers with curiosity and careful steps. Imagine standing at that conversation with us, toes in cool sand, camera above, sonar hush nearby, lab lamp in the distance. Attentions that together craft a gentle narrative of rediscovery. A tender discovery, the diver's small smile holding a carved rim, the technician's soft exclamation over a pollen match, becomes a human hinge swinging the story toward intimacy rather than spectacle. We touch modern instruments like one might touch a friend's sleeve, keeping tone mild and companionable. We carry these recognitions forward into the deeper story. The machines have asked and the sea replied in fragments. Our role is to listen to both answers and questions, and to keep the conversation low and deliberate. Close your eyes for a heartbeat if you wish and feel the rhythm of this sequence. Net, photo, blip, gloved hand, lamp, walk. Let each element fade into the next as gently as the tide blends pebble into silt and hush. We drift now into tangents that have no urgency, only the soft patience of domestic attentions. Begin with a reed bending in a mudflat. It takes its time to return upright, and we take that as an instruction. A single reed, the scrape of a thumb across its length, the tiny bell on a child's ankle. These are the micro scenes that slow thought and cradle sleep. We will open a box of small images and allow each one its own quiet moment. Consider a single evening after harvest. A woman loosens her sleeves, presses the dough with practiced thumbs, and hums a soft tune that her grandmother hummed before her. The hum is not a song for ears so much as a rhythm for hands. It steadies the knuckles, it steadies the hearth. We imagine the scent of barley warming, a faint curl of smoke, and the soft clink of a spoon against a bowl. Hold that image for a breath and let the shoulders fall. Another scene, a small wooden bell, hung from a low beam, marking time in the room. One clink at the turning of work, another at the mending of nets. Its sound is a patient punctuation. We picture a child taking the bell in palms, turning it over, pressing a finger to the clapper, and listening as if learning the grammar of home. This moment is slow. The child's attention is a lesson in staying. We let our breathing mirror gentle curiosity. Inhale, hold a soft inner beat. Exhale. Sometimes a digression is a fabric, a cloth folded and refolded across generations, a shawl passed from hand to hand until the fibers know the shape of family. We can feel the weave between our fingertips, coarse in some places, softened in others by oil and care. Our narrator's voice can linger there, describing the pull of thread as if mapping a river's current, and in that mapping our thoughts begin to unspool. We say the word fold, and let it become a small incantation. Fold, fold, fold. Imagine a lullaby learned while shells are being gathered, a line repeated so many times it thins into breath and then into sleep. The lyrics are not important. The cadence is. Hear the verse in the margins of daily life, the sound that smooths a child's brow and that smooths the hands of a potter as clay spins. Repeat with us, silently if you prefer, a simple refrain. Soft as silt, and feel the phrase soften the mind. We take a long, slow tangent about repairs, a pot mended with a fine seam, a basket rewoven where the weave had given. The hand that does this work learns economy and song. Fingers memorize the geometry of mending, and in that memory, there is comfort. We linger on the hands, the thumb that presses, the nail that trims, the pause to admire a neat stitch. We notice our own hands as we listen, place them lightly upon the chest or the belly, and feel their small warmth. Another small box opens. A communal evening where stories are traded like bread. One neighbor brings news of a new inlet. Another brings a recipe for salted fish. They exchange not as merchants, but as keepers of taste and care. Language here is recipe and counsel, and in speaking it, the community maintains a quiet continuity. We listen to one small story repeated, of a lantern left on a distant dune and found the next morning by a fisherman, and let the story act as a tether to the present. Again, breath with us. In, out, a little slower. Digressions can be sensual and minute. The feel of a reed-swept broom across a threshold, the precise sound a jar makes when set on a shelf, the splash of a child's foot in a puddle. We let each minute sensory note be long enough to be savored. The mind, given small savorings, will not rush toward conclusion. There is a recurring bell in our telling, a wooden bowl's hollow ring, and it returns like a familiar phrase at the head of every small scene. We will go on with a laundry of tiny chores, described one by one in calm lists. Mend the net, tie the knot, lift the pot, set it to cool, fold the cloth, hang the cord, close the lid. Lists read slowly are lullabies. Their rhythm invites the body to slow and to trust in repetition. We ask you to match the rhythm with a slow nodding of the head or a soft release of the shoulders. Small bodily gestures root the mind in the present. There is also a long, meandering memory about weather. The scent of coming rain learned by a dog's nose, the cloud shapes that elders read as a book, the slow change in the sea's color that foretells a shift in channels. We let these observations drift like clouds across our mind, not to instruct, but to comfort by pattern recognition. Patterns are restful. The mind recognizes them and ceases to worry. A tender domestic vignette. Two neighbors mending a roof by lamplight, their voices low, hands coordinating without fuss, a bowl of soup cooling between them. This image carries a small theology of care, that repair is a way of saying you will remain. We hold this theology softly, and in holding it we hold our own capacity for belonging. We prolong one image, a lantern lit at dusk, its glass clouded with old oil, casting a circle of patient light on the threshold. The act of lighting is ceremonial only in its intimacy. A match struck, a tiny flame coaxed, the wick settled to a steady hum. In that light, the village's small objects take on the quality of reliquaries. A ladle, a spindle, a child's carved bird. Each is seen and then gently returned to its place. Observe how the light makes everyone's faces slow in the best possible way, smoothing the quick lines of day into slower shapes. There is a long, soft memory of the sea's scent mixing with hearth smoke, and of neighbors stepping outside after supper to stand for a while on the dune, hands folded, looking at the same slow horizon. Such gatherings are wordless, and silence there is not empty but full of tide-memorized stories and of small, unspoken support. We imagine joining them, letting the group hold our attention like a net small enough to cradle us, and feeling, for an instant, that belonging stays. We sit together in the hush after a day of careful observation, and in that hush our thoughts thin into a more delicate currency, feeling. There is a metallic tang to the evening tide now, not sharp but distant, as if the sea remembers iron without wanting to boast. We let such details touch us. The cool of a stone beneath a palm, the soft give of a pillow warmed by many sleeps. Our curiosity softens into an attentive sorrow, not urgent, not bitter, but the gentle ache of something held in the heart and followed with kindness. We speak of attachment, how place becomes part of a person in small increments, a bench in the shade, a threshold that matches a hand, and how those increments accumulate until the land is a companion. Ask yourself how you hold a room in your bones, how the curve of a doorway can remind you of a parent's shoulder. One might think such attachments superficial, but the archaeologist reads them in pebbles and pot rims, and feeling becomes an honest form of evidence. There is wonder braided with melancholy, wonder at the human patience to plant and wait, melancholy at the moment patience meets change. We look at seed rows and imagine the hands that press them into soil, and we feel gentle astonishment at the continuity of those motions across centuries. How slow and marvelous cultivation is, how tender the repetition of sowing and naming a field. This wonder is quiet. It settles like a shawl upon our shoulders. Memory here is not a photograph, but an accumulation of textures. The smell of wet grain, the roughness of rope, the warm indent of a carved peg. These textures carry the weight of persons, not sharp personalities preserved in bright relief, but soft outlines of habit and care. We might put a hand to the imagined peg and trace the thumb mark as if reading a note from afar. In that action we find consolation. Small objects make claims time cannot fully erase. We reflect on adaptation, which is rarely heroic and often a sequence of soft choices. Move the hearth an arm's length uphill, plant a different crop this season, try a new inlet. These adjustments are humble and manifold. They are the plumbing of ordinary survival, and in them there is dignity. We honor these motions as proof of endurance rather than spectacle. Consider the woman who braids a net anew rather than lament the old one. That choice is exquisite in its ordinariness. Private moments anchor our melancholy. A child laying a carved bird beside a parent, an elder tracing a map in dust, a neighbor mending a roof with hands that remember decades. These scenes are intimate and unperformative. They are meant not for audiences, but for those who live them. We keep these minutes safe in our telling. They act as quiet ligaments between past and present. We return to continuity. Seeds, songs, and stories travel with people. What is submerged is often not forgotten, but carried elsewhere in small ways. A recipe remembered on a new shore, a lullaby hummed beneath a fresh roof. These migrations need no maps. We find comfort in such practices. They are proof that people persist. We carry these small confidences with care, as one might fold a valuable letter into a book and lay it where the light will find it before returning to our slow breath. At the end of this arc we narrow toward quiet acceptance. We accept the ache and fold it into wonder, let admiration temper sadness, and come to a place where melancholy is a companion toward sleep. Let the breath slow, let the chest soften, feel a weight of gratitude for having witnessed, even in imagination, patient lives. We touch the peg again in our mind and find that tenderness outlives seasons. We begin with closeness, the kind that comes from leaning in toward a small, glowing scene, as though we have quietly stepped through a low doorway and found ourselves inside a life that has been waiting patiently for us. Even before we see anything clearly, we feel the soft scrape of motion, the hush of people beginning their day, the mild warmth of a hearth that has held embers through the night. We stand together just inside the threshold, and the air greets us like a familiar shawl draped over the shoulders. Morning arrives not with urgency, but with a long, slow exhale. We imagine a family waking in the half-light, parents murmuring, an elder shifting on a woven mat, a child rubbing sleep from the corners of their eyes with the back of a small hand. No one rushes. This is a world held together by steady, predictable rhythms, the kind that quiet the mind simply by being witnessed. The first sound we attend to is the soft scrape of a potter's wheel turning somewhere just outside. The movement is unhurried, patient, the kind of repetition that turns breath into craft. As we step farther into the dwelling, the textures grow richer. Clay jars line one wall, their surfaces warm from last evening's fire. A loom stands against the opposite side, its threads pulled taut like the strings of a sleepy instrument. A single wooden ladle hangs on a peg smoothed by many years of touch. These are not display objects. They are companions in daily life, each one shaped by a pair of hands that knew exactly how it should feel. A woman kneels near the hearth, coaxing a small flame awake. She lifts a handful of straw, lets it breathe, and then settles it beneath the glowing coals. We watch light bloom gently, flickering gold across the room. The smell of warmed clay and faint wood smoke gathers around us like a slow melody. A child, barely awake, shuffles closer and rests their cheek on the woman's knee. This, too, is part of the ritual, the morning leaning, the shared warmth, the trust held in small gestures. Outside, the potter continues his early work. We join him for a moment, kneeling beside the wheel as his fingers guide the clay. The wheel turns a slow, steady circle, and his thumbs press inward with the confidence of someone who learned this rhythm from a parent and who will someday teach it in turn. The clay rises, trembles, steadies. We witness the quiet miracle of something taking shape beneath gentle hands. There is no hurry here. The vessel will become what it needs to become in its own time. The sun climbs a little higher, and the village stirs. Footsteps on packed earth. A soft whistle from someone feeding animals. A wooden gate closing with a muted thud. None of the sounds compete with one another. They overlap like ripples, small, calm, familiar. We turn our attention to midday, when the world slows again, not from fatigue, but from harmony. A man sits cross-legged near the door, repairing a fishing net. 3 motions per breath. Thread through. Pull gently, not with care. Thread through. Pull gently, not with care. This is the rhythm that sustains his family, and he performs it as though reciting a prayer passed down through generations. He hums softly, a tune without words, one he learned long before he could speak. The breeze threads through the opening in the wall, carrying the scent of growing barley and distant salt. Inside, a girl tends to a series of small tasks. She checks the grain stored in a shallow pit lined with woven reeds. She feels the smoothness of a jar's rim to see if the seal remains tight. She brushes crumbs from a wooden board with the edge of her sleeve. The motions are small, but they reveal a life attentive to detail, a life that blooms in ordinary actions. We move through the home as though trailing a friendly hand across its surfaces. Each object offers a whisper of its purpose. A deep bowl with a crack carefully mended by resin. A figurine tucked near the roof beam, worn smooth by years of thumbs pressed to its tiny head. A bundle of dried herbs tied with thin cord. These artifacts are not relics. They are ongoing stories. They make the room feel alive, as though the walls themselves breathe along with the people. Evening approaches with warm calm. The family gathers around the hearth, where a pot now simmers and releases a gentle, steady aroma. We watch steam curl upward like a drifting ribbon. Outside, animals settle. Voices soften. The potter returns, carrying the freshly shaped vessel he began that morning. He sets it near the fire, proud but unassuming, as though creation is simply part of the day's natural arc. A neighbor enters without ceremony. Village doors are rarely closed to friends. She brings a spindle and wool, settling beside the gathered family. Spinning begins. Draw, twist, release. Draw, twist, release. The repetition forms a warm cocoon of sound, a rhythm that steadies the breath. The elder tells a short story, voice low and comforting. Children listen with heavy eyelids, their heads resting on laps or shoulders. This is where we sense the deep heartbeat of the village, not in its architecture or its fields, but in the softness of the moments that string a life together. As night thickens, the loom's wooden frame casts long shadows. A few tools are cleaned and put away. The repaired net is folded neatly. The day settles with a feeling of completion, a sense that nothing rushed, nothing broke, nothing demanded more than a gentle effort. And we sit with this household, letting its warmth be ours for a little while. We watch as a parent smooths a woven mat for the youngest, as someone drapes a cloth over cooling clay, as the last ember glows like a quiet pulse in the hearth. We don't need to speak, the stillness speaks for us. In this reconstructed evening, time loosens, breath deepens, thoughts uncoil. We feel the belonging of a place where the air is shaped by care, by craft, by repetition, where people build not monumental things, but comforting ones. And when the final flame softens, shrinking to a tiny bloom of red, when the loom falls silent, when the potter's hands rest, we hold the village close as if it were a small, warm lantern cupped between our palms. It glows gently, asking nothing of us, just as a home should. We begin this chapter standing on the familiar shoreline, the one we have walked together through memory and imagination. But something has changed, though it is so subtle, so gradual, that even as we notice it, we cannot quite name it. The air feels slightly cooler at dawn. The reeds hold moisture a little longer before drying. The path between the village and the water curves now where it once ran straight. Nothing alarming, nothing sudden, just the quiet truth that landscapes, like people, shift gently over years. We rest here a moment, feeling the sand beneath our feet. It is damp farther inland than it used to be. The tide comes a little higher, not enough to trouble the villagers, but enough that those with long memories raise an eyebrow at the change. And even they, with their slow smiles and steady hands, speak of it as something natural. The sea breathing differently, the shore learning new shapes, the world stretching under the sky's long seasons. As we watch, water arrives with the patience of a scholar turning the pages of a thick, ancient book. It does not rush, it does not grasp, it simply moves according to rhythms older than any settlement. Each year the shoreline steps back a few quiet paces, and each year the villagers step with it, adjusting their paths, tending their fields a little farther uphill, building small terraces with the wisdom of people who have always known that the earth is a living companion, not a fixed stage. We wander with them, shoulder to shoulder, imagining what it felt like to witness such a slow transformation. The sea is not an intruder in their eyes. It is a neighbor, sometimes distant, sometimes intimate, arriving with gifts and taking some away. When water reclaims a shallow channel, they speak of it as though the sea is clearing its throat. When a low meadow grows marshy, they observe its new reeds with curiosity, not worry. There is a kind of grace in this acceptance, a soft resilience that smooths the heart when we consider it. We pause near a grove of willows where children once played. The roots are wet now, the soil darker. A thin strip of water curls between trunks where a footpath used to run. We crouch down together, listening. There is a delicate sound, water moving beneath a tangle of reeds, not a stream, not a swamp, but something in between. This, too, is part of the slow flood, not a wave, not a storm, but thousands of tiny adjustments, almost imperceptible, braided across a lifetime. Archaeologists today describe this period with calm, careful language. They speak of sea level change, of hydrological rebalancing, of the Black Sea's gentle reconnection with distant waters. Their words are precise, but we may imagine them as metaphors instead, as though the sea were learning a new song, as though its depth were remembering an old story and adjusting its breathing to match. We step farther along the fading shoreline, letting the cool wind carry grains of salt to our lips. We try to picture how the villagers adapted over the decades. A field moved slightly higher each generation. A cluster of homes shifted back from the old shore. A new path worn smooth by feet finding fresher ground. None of this happened with drama. It was the sort of change one only recognizes when comparing memories. Wasn't the water farther out when I was young? Didn't our grandparents harvest reeds where the tide touches now? If we close our eyes, we can hear the steady, nearly invisible process of inundation. The reeds murmur differently than before. The birds choose new nesting places. The air carries a cooler strand of moisture in dawn hours. It is as though the sea presses its ear to the land, listening for the right moment to advance the smallest step. The village life we witnessed in earlier sections continues unchanged, and yet always adjusting. A basket stored in a new place, a footbridge built from driftwood, a clay jar moved higher on its shelf because the old storage pit has grown too damp. These are not acts of desperation, but of cooperation. The villagers live with the land, not against it. We can feel the serenity in their choices, the trust that nature is not an opponent, but an ancient relative whose moods shift slowly and with purpose. We walk now through the low fields just before dusk. The water glimmers in places it did not glimmer years earlier. Pools mirror the sky, catching stars before the stars have fully risen. This is the soft beauty of the slow flood. Not destruction, but transformation. Not an ending, but a quiet reweaving. Eventually, one season, the villagers decide it is time to pull their settlement a modest distance inland. Not a sudden relocation, just a gentle adjustment made over many years. A new house post, a new hearth, a new piece of earth beneath their feet. The old foundations remain behind, slowly sinking into wetter soil, then into the tidal hush. Children who once played among the willow roots now play on higher ground, their laughter carrying across fields that will remain dry for another generation or two. And then, long after those children have grown, the water continues its persistent, respectful work. It rises grain by grain, inch by inch, season by season, like a patient scribe adding lines to a manuscript. Eventually, the old village sinks beneath the weightless weave of water, and it settles there as though lying down for a long, dreamless sleep. We stand at that imagined moment now, watching the last roofline slip beneath the surface, not with fear, not with sorrow, but with a kind of reverent calm. The sea covers the past like a soft blanket. It holds the memory gently, preserving clay and stone and hearth ash in its quiet archive. And we, floating between centuries, understand something tender. That change does not always arrive like thunder. Sometimes it comes as a slow, breathing tide, teaching us that all things move, all things drift, all things find new forms in the long patience of time. The sea has settled now into its long, contemplative stillness, and beneath its surface the remnants of the old villages rest with the serenity of objects that no longer need to be useful. We drift there in imagination, you and I, as though walking slowly through a room of memories. The water is quiet, a soft archive that holds everything at arm's length, but never out of reach. It is a curious truth that when the people moved inland, they carried their stories with them, but the things they left behind, these small, humble artifacts, carried the texture of their hands. Let us begin with something simple, a bowl. Not a grand ceremonial vessel, not an object of wealth, but a small pottery bowl, its rim chipped in two places. When divers lifted it from the silt centuries later, the clay felt unexpectedly familiar, as though it remembered warmth. If we hold it gently in our thoughts now, we can imagine the way someone once cradled it while carrying grain from the threshing mat, or how a child might have drummed their fingers on it absent-mindedly during a long story at dusk. The archaeologists note the repair seam along the side, a line of darker clay, smoothed and fired again, and we may picture the quiet hands that mended it, deciding it was worth saving. Objects, like people, endure when they are loved. A little farther on in our quiet drift of imagination lies something smaller still, a bead. It is carved from bone, circular, cool in the mind's palm. Its hole is slightly worn on one edge, suggesting it once hung from a cord against someone's chest. Perhaps part of a necklace, perhaps tied into a child's clothing as a charm. We may never know the specifics, but what matters is the presence, the small, persistent whisper that this bead meant something, however modest. When researchers cleaned the silt from its surface, they found traces of reddish pigment, too faint to identify. Yet one might suppose it belonged to a garment woven with patience, cared for through many seasons, before finally being set aside or lost during the long retreat inland. Even now, the bead offers a gentle companionship, a reminder that beauty often hides in the smallest forms. Nearby, buried in the quiet dark, a spindlewhirl rests like a tiny planet. Round, smooth, steady. The kind of object that shaped daily rhythms more than any ritual ever could. A spindlewhirl is not dramatic. It is a tool of harmony, of repetition, of comfort. The grooves along its edge tell of long hours twisting wool or flax into thread, of the soft hum that would have filled the home as fibers gathered into strong, even strands. If we listen closely, we can almost hear that rhythm now. A faint spiraling sound, steady as breath. Archaeologists speak of such tools with a kind of respect, for they carry the weight of the mundane, and the mundane is the backbone of any life. We move along this underwater corridor of memory and find a wooden ladle, softened by centuries, but still unmistakable in shape. Perhaps it once served broth on winter nights. Perhaps it was carved by someone learning the craft, its handle slightly uneven. Objects like this are rarely celebrated in museums. They are too ordinary. And yet, it is precisely their ordinariness that makes them profound. They remind us that these lost communities were not abstractions, not distant entries in a catalog. They were people who stirred meals, soothed children, and lived their days with the same gentle attention we give to small domestic acts now. Folding cloth, rinsing a cup, placing a hand on a warm surface. The water grows deeper here, the light softer. We slow our pace, letting the sensation of imagined currents move past us like a long exhale. Here, half swallowed by silt, rests something both intimate and universal, a child's toy, no larger than a palm, carved from a pale piece of driftwood. Its shape is simple, perhaps an animal, perhaps a boat, perhaps something only the child could name. The edges are smooth, worn by touch rather than time. We pause with it, allowing a small ache of tenderness to pass through us. It is not a sadness, exactly, more a quiet wonder at the persistence of care. A toy is never just an object. It is a conversation across generations, a lesson in gentleness. As we drift upward, our thoughts act like lanterns, illuminating each artifact in turn. The clink of pottery underwater, the faint scrape of bone against silt, the soft shadow of a spindlewhirl turning lazily as currents pass. These are not the echoes of a vanished world, but the lingering hum of a world that changed shape. The hands that made these things are long gone, but the gestures remain, the smoothing of clay, the threading of beads, the turning of wool. Even in silence, the artifacts speak. Archaeologists, for all their tools and methods, understand that their work is guided as much by imagination as by science. When they lift an object from the seabed, they often describe a pause, a moment of stillness before the item enters air again, as though acknowledging the centuries it has spent in the dark. We feel that same pause now, a hush that settles gently over our thoughts. The objects have waited patiently. We meet them with equal patience. We return at last to the surface of our own breath, carrying with us the warmth of these small relics. Nothing dramatic occurred in our journey, just a slow, careful drifting among things that once mattered to someone. The slow flood did not come like a story usually tells it. No crashing waves, no rushing walls of water, no cries of alarm echoing through the fields. Instead, it arrived in a manner almost tender, a shift in the world so gradual that many did not feel fear at all, only a deepening intuition that the land was changing, settling, exhaling, and perhaps, in some quiet way, preparing to sleep. We imagine the shoreline one late afternoon, The light stretched long and golden across clay paths and woven baskets. A faint haze drifts over the distant water, a thin veil carrying the scent of salt farther inland than usual. A group of children chase each other near the field edges, splashing their toes in shallow pools that had not existed the week before. Their laughter rises, carefree, unaware that the puddles marking their footprints are the first small signatures of a sea coming closer. The adults notice, of course. They always do. Farmers measure shifts in soil the way others measure time. A mother, kneeling with a bundle of reeds, frowns gently as she presses her palm into damp earth that should have been dry. A potter, shaping a vessel beside a low fire, glances repeatedly toward the horizon where waves seem to sparkle nearer than they once did. A shepherd pauses mid-step, his animals grazing at grass made lush, too lush, with new moisture. But the observation carries no panic, no rushing, only the sense of a world adjusting itself, and the people adjusting with it. The water returns the next day, and the next. It inches forward with a patience only nature possesses, reclaiming the ancient deltas and river mouths that had once belonged to it in ages before these villages were born. We witness a small moment at the edge of one settlement. An elder kneels with a simple wooden staff planted firmly in the earth. She marks the height of the water each morning, short strokes carved into the stick. At first the changes are subtle, barely worth noting. But as days become moons, the lines creep upward. She traces them with her fingers, not with dread, but with awe, as though watching a story unfold exactly as it was always meant to. There is a meeting one evening near the central hearth. Families gather, sitting close, flames flickering over their faces. They discuss the rising water, but not as a threat, more as an inevitable shift in the seasons. The world is full of cycles, they remind one another. Rivers flood and recede. The moon pulls the tides. Lands that were once dry become wetlands. Wetlands become lakes. Lakes become sea. They do not speak of abandonment. They speak of adaptation. Some suggest moving their homes farther inland, closer to the tree line. Others speak of building new structures atop raised foundations of timber and packed earth. A few wonder if the sea brings gifts, rich fish, smoother stones, new paths for trading with neighbors. No one speaks of loss, because the loss has not yet arrived, only the soft premonition of it. We imagine a young boy watching the shoreline by moonlight. The tide has crept so near now that the waves lap at the base of the settlement's outer fence. He dips a small clay figurine into the water, studying how it ripples around the shape, how the moon shimmers in fragments across the surface. He wonders what the sea wants. He wonders if it remembers the land differently than the people do. By day, the community continues its rhythms, fishing, harvesting, weaving, tending animals, while the encroaching water reshapes the edges of their routines. A footpath must be rerouted. A garden must be moved. A drying rack for herbs must be rebuilt farther up the slope. Each adjustment is minor, but together they whisper the truth. The land beneath their feet is no longer the same. There comes a morning when the elder with the staff steps into the shallows and finds that the water has reached the topmost mark she carved. The staff can hold no more lines. She plants it upright in the sand and leaves it there, allowing the waves to lap at it without resistance. Some say this is the moment she understands that the world is turning a page, that their village stands on a threshold between eras. Yet still, no panic. Instead, the people begin to quietly prepare, not to flee, but to transition. Canoes are repaired. Grain stores are sealed more carefully. Simple rafts are crafted from bundled reeds for transporting tools and pottery across the widening wetlands forming between homes. And as the waters rise, so too does an unspoken understanding. Their time here is not ending abruptly. It is dissolving gently, like pigment in a bowl of water, softening into memory even as life goes on. We walk with them through these days of shift and shimmering change, feeling the blend of nostalgia and acceptance that grows like a quiet echo in their hearts. Every sunrise brings a slightly altered horizon. Every evening carries the sound of waves a little closer, gentler than before, as though the sea hums a lullaby only ancient landscapes can hear. There comes a day, quiet, warm, unremarkable to the passing sky, when the villagers finally understand that the water is no longer visiting. It has arrived to stay, not with force, but with inevitability, the way dusk settles over a field or the way a story settles into its last chapter. The sea has reached the thresholds of their homes, brushing softly against wooden door frames as though greeting old friends. By this time, life has become a gentle choreography of adaptation. Canoes rest beside houses instead of along the outer shore. Walkways of boards and woven reeds link one elevated platform to another. Children now play by drifting reed boats along the shallow pools that weave through the village like new veins. They find joy in these changes, but the adults see the truth forming in the patterns of tides and wind. The rising will not stop. And so, quietly, they decide. No ceremony announces it. No single voice declares the moment. Instead, the understanding ripples from one family to the next like a shared breath. It is time to move inland. Not in fear, not in hurried escape. Simply because the land where they have lived for generations is returning to its ancient identity. What was once fertile ground for grain and herds was, long ago, the floor of a shallow sea. The earth remembers, even when people forget. That evening, as the sun lowers itself behind a veil of silver clouds, the villagers gather for one last communal meal on these waterside grounds. They meet atop a broad wooden platform supported by stone posts, one of their sturdiest structures. Lamps made of clay and fat flicker gently, their reflections dancing on the water below as if spirits watch from the deep. No one speaks loudly. The tone of the gathering is soft, reverent, like the hush before a long-awaited rain. They share flatbreads, roasted grains, herbs grown in the last surviving patch of high soil. The aroma drifts upward, mixing with the cool, salt-scented air. Children fall asleep against their parents' sides, lulled by the rhythmic whisper of waves against wood. At the far edge of the platform, the elder woman, the one who once carved the water's rise into her staff, sits quietly. She holds the staff across her knees, though the markings have long disappeared beneath the sea's reach. The water has claimed the lower half entirely. When she lifts it, droplets fall from the soaked wood like small, shimmering blessings. She speaks only once during the gathering, her voice barely above the wind. Remember this place by how it lived, not by how it drowned. Her words settle over the group like fine dust, gentle and enduring. After the meal, families return to their homes, not to sleep, but to gather the last few things worth carrying into their next life. Their gestures are slow and unhurried. A potter wraps a single bowl, the first he ever shaped. A fisherman lifts a worn net, patched so many times it carries more memory than fiber. A mother retrieves a small carved figure of a bird, smooth from years of her daughter, holding it close. Most possessions are left behind. They will not take beams or stones or baskets built into the rhythm of old walls. Those things belong to the land, and now to the sea. When the moon rises, the village glows faintly under its pale light. Water reflects every beam, turning the settlement into a shimmering mosaic of shadows and silver. Canoes are lined up at what used to be the central square, their hulls rocking gently as though eager to begin the voyage inland. One by one, households approach the water's edge. They step into their boats with soft movements so as not to disturb the hush of the moment. The night carries no tears, only breath, long, steady, accepting. This is not a separation. It is a continuation. Before pushing off, each family pauses. Some touch the water with their fingertips, offering a silent farewell. Others look back toward their homes, knowing these shapes will soon vanish beneath the deepening tide. And a few whisper thanks. Thanks to the land that fed them, sheltered them, sang to them through seasons uncounted. The elder is the last to board her canoe. She stands for a moment on the flooded threshold of her dwelling, letting the waves reach her ankles, her robes drifting with the motion. She plants her staff in the water beside her, not to measure anymore, but simply to acknowledge the sea as it claims its own. When she steps into the canoe, the sound is nearly inaudible, the soft thump of wood against wood, yet it feels like a page turning. The villagers push away from the settlement in silence. Their canoes glide across the moonlit water, slipping between the partially submerged rooftops and walkways. The ripples they create shimmer briefly, then fade. Behind them, the village waits, calm and unmoving, as though exhaling one final time. They do not look back again. Ahead lies the forested rise where new homes will be built. Behind lies a world gently surrendering to the sea. And in the stillness between those two places, past and future, the villagers drift like symbols of a story older than the land itself. By the time the villagers have journeyed inland, the sea has already begun its patient work, slow, deliberate, almost tender in its touch. There is no violence in the way the water rises over the thresholds, no crashing fury. Instead, the waves slip through the empty doorways like curious guests, exploring each abandoned room with careful steps. One might suppose that water, having waited so long to reclaim this place, would rush forward. But it does not. It behaves like something remembering, something returning. We drift now, just as they once did, across the newly born lagoon where the village once stood. The surface is glass smooth, unstirred except for a faint breeze that draws silver lines across it. And beneath that serene mirror, the world they left behind begins its transformation. At first, we see only shadows. Roof lines softened into gentle slopes, fences reduced to wavering silhouettes. The water distorts everything, smudging sharp edges, rounding corners as though smoothing a memory before keeping it. But as we peer closer, details emerge. The arch of a doorway, the curve of a pot half sunk in silt, the bright glimmer of a bronze bowl resting exactly where it was set down on the last night. No hands will lift these things again, yet they do not vanish. The sea has its own way of keeping company. Small fish arrive first, darting like sparks of light between the wooden pilings, weaving through the beams of collapsed walkways. They explore the new terrain with untroubled delight. Their movements send ripples of sand drifting upward in slow spirals, settling like faint mist. In time, eelgrass clings to the lower stones, waving gently with the current as though bowing in greeting. And then come the larger creatures, the cautious ones. A pair of river seals glides past, their sleek bodies reflecting the sun that filters through the surface. They turn their heads as if surprised to find a human village underwater, as if wondering what manner of beings lived here before the tides claimed the rooms and hearths. It is a curious fact that the sea rarely erases completely. More often, it repurposes. Every beam and bowl, every carved threshold and weathered post becomes part of a new ecology. The sea folds these remnants into its own slow architecture. As we descend a little farther, the light grows dimmer and more devotional. Colors soften into muted blues and belljar greens. The sound changes too. The world above becomes a muffled hum, while the underwater quiet deepens into its own vast, contemplative silence. From the west, faint currents whisper through submerged windows. From the east, a soft thrum of distant waves tightens and releases like a heartbeat. It is here, just past the charred remains of an old cooking hearth, that we find something unexpected. The ziggurat, not a grand temple of stone, as one might imagine from distant legends, but a modest stepped structure built of river rock and clay, rising only a few armspans high, yet unmistakably deliberate in its shape. It stands at the center of the village, exactly where the community once gathered to share news, blessings, harvest rites. Now it sits waist-deep in water, its upper steps still visible above the surface, though soon they too will rest beneath the tide. We slip downward along its side, drifting into the soft green dark of the water. At the base lies a small opening, a threshold no taller than our shoulders, just wide enough for one person to enter. This chamber, once used for offerings and quiet contemplation, now fills slowly with filtered light and drifting particles. The water inside feels heavier, older, as though it has settled here intentionally. We enter. The chamber is nearly empty except for a single object resting in the center, a child's carved wooden skylark. Its wings are spread in mid-flight, though the wood has softened and warped gently under the sea's touch. It must have been placed here recently, perhaps by a parent on that last night, perhaps by the child herself. Its presence here, in this quiet underwater room, speaks more clearly than any inscription. It tells us that the villagers did not abandon their world in sorrow, but in reverence. They left behind a symbol of innocence, of continuity, of the small joys that define a home. And now, the sea shelters it. The chamber's stillness feels protective, like hands cupped around a fragile flame. We hover there for a moment, breathing slowly, letting the hush wrap around us. The listener may feel a soft tightening in the chest, a recognition that even in deep water, some things endure. Our breathing slows with the gentle pressure of the deep. Our shoulders loosen. The world narrows into softness. When we rise again through the chamber's threshold, the village unfolds beneath us like a dream sinking into memory. The rooftops blur into gentle mounds. The wooden beams darken. The paths between homes fill with swaying green. The sea is remaking everything, but not erasing, never erasing. As twilight filters down from above, we drift toward the surface, carrying the weight of what we've seen. The ziggurat waits below, a quiet sentinel of a world that moved inland and a sea that moved home.